Admit it. You think coffee's bad for you. You drink it despite that belief, don't you? You bad, bad boy and or girl. You drink it despite the fact that you think this liquid sludge is running rampant through the organs and systems of your body. What if I told you, though, that you didn't have to worry about any of that? And in fact, you might actually benefit from drinking even more coffee. Prepare to have your mind blown, and not just with caffeine, but with knowledge. Unless you already knew that coffee isn't bad for you, in which case feel free to stick around because we're going to talk about a lot of really cool studies, including one new study about coffee and dementia that was published just a couple months ago. One of the absolute craziest things the researchers found is that coffee drinkers have lower mortality rates from all causes compared with people who don't drink coffee. All causes. Every single one of them. Obviously, you're a goner no matter what you do, ultimately, and I'm sorry to tell you that if you weren't aware, but I know, it's sad face. But being less likely to die from every single specific cause is kind of a cool thing. And I say this as someone who should be dead probably from a great number of causes. Thanks, coffee! And this is just one reason why people shouldn't feel so bad about chugging that morning mug of hot lightning. Unless, of course, I've just ruined your entire life because you only drink coffee because you think you shouldn't. In which case, we're not gonna figure that out here, and that's something you really need to clear up in therapy. The mortality rate's deliciousness comes from a whole lot of studies over a whole lot of time. One big meta-analysis published in 2019 in the European Journal of Epidemiology that was just enormous and had the researchers combing through 40 different studies that covered almost 4 million subjects and over 450,000 deaths. The researchers found that the lowest risk levels came at 3.5 cups of coffee every day, and this benefit was seen across age, weight, smokers, alcohol drinkers, and just all the things you could be and you could do. The only limiting factor to the health benefits of coffee seems to be whether or not you live in America. Europe and Asia have the same levels of benefits, but people living here in the United States see less of a benefit, and so far the reason for that is unclear. The absolute most bewildering thing about this whole thing is that studies even show lower mortality rates for accident deaths, which I definitely think we need to understand better, because what in the world is that? Because the only thing that comes to mind for me is when I'm connecting the dots for this is that I guess coffee drinkers are just so amped up and alert that those freaky final destination kind of ridiculous things just aren't gonna get us. All that coffee means that we're just out there dodging and weaving and saying, "Not today, Satan." Overall, it seems like 2 to 4 cups is the sweet spot, with the lowest risk of cardiovascular deaths at 2.5 cups, and then 2 cups a day for cancer mortality. I actually started drinking 2 cups a day pretty sporadically recently, and now I'm thinking like, why not 15? I'm just kidding. Please do not drink 15 cups of coffee a day. Too much coffee is actually bad for you. There is a limit. A study from 2021 found that after 6 cups of coffee, MRI results showed that people had lower brain volumes and were more likely to develop dementia over time. And this was a big study involving 17,000 participants aged 37 to 73. So again, we're just sticking with that 2 to 4 cup range, okay? All right, okay, I see you. One other thing to mention along with this is that it does seem to matter how you take your coffee. A newer meta-analysis from Tufts University confirmed the lower mortality rate effect that lots of other studies have also confirmed, but what it also did was divide up the subjects by whether they drank their coffee black or doused it with a lot of different flavorful creamers and such. And maybe this is not surprising, but the lower mortality rates were found to be limited to black coffee and coffee with low amounts of added sugar and saturated fats. It was unclear at the conclusion of the study whether or not coffee with a lot of extras in it had any beneficial effects at all. It's possible that all of the additives undercut the entire thing. So maybe keep that in mind the next time you're browsing the menu inside that ubiquitous coffee empire founded by a certain Battlestar Galactica character. Another thing you need to worry about is the exact brewing method of your coffee. I'm probably about to make a lot of people very sad with this information, but unfiltered coffee has been shown in the research to not be as healthy as filtered coffee. Unfiltered coffee is made via methods like French press, Turkish coffee, and single-serve pods like K-Cups, which I feel like is the thing that's going to make a lot of people the most unhappy because, God, they're just the most easy. Unfiltered coffee contains compounds that increases your serum total cholesterol and also your LDL cholesterol. Filtered coffee filters out those compounds. Unfiltered coffee is still good for you, just less good for you than filtered methods like just using a regular drip coffee maker or doing pour-over or using an AeroPress. But let's talk about more good stuff, though, because it's unlikely that you're drinking 6 cups of coffee a day or more, and also probably unlikely that you're always drinking your coffee covered in syrup and whipped cream. But, try to stop if that's what you are doing. Now, the new coffee and dementia study I mentioned at the top of the video is a collab between Harvard and MIT, and it shows us a correlation between drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day and an 18% reduced and an 18% reduced risk of dementia. They also found the same results from 1 cup of caffeinated tea a day. So it kind of seems like it's just the caffeine here in this case delivering the benefit. And the amount of caffeine doesn't seem to matter so much. Like decaf coffee and tea did not show any benefits, and higher amounts of caffeine didn't change the risk levels at all. So consuming caffeine in general seems like it might be the thing that has some kind of cognitive protection element associated with it. And speaking of brain goodies, there's a growing body of evidence that suggests that coffee might be able to counteract depression. A lot of the research in this area is made up of rodent studies, so that's not going to be super conclusive just yet, but the biological mechanisms that coffee works on in rodents would make it likely that this is a thing for people too. Of course, there is some research about this in humans, but we just don't totally know yet. Some of the research is finding that coffee and caffeine consumption is reducing neuroinflammation and positively affecting the gut microbiome, which are two things that have been found to be really important in depression in recent years, and other mental health conditions too. Some studies have found that coffee intake is just simply proven to be a good mood booster in general. Now, the same biomechanics in depression can also be present in anxiety disorders, and coffee seems like it might be good for that too. This one is kind of a mixed bag because caffeine is a stimulant, and it can also make people anxious. It can make you jittery and just really uneasy in some cases. There was a point in my life when I had to stop drinking coffee altogether for this exact reason. So not everyone should drink it and expect amazing results, especially if there's an underlying pathology or you just find that coffee can make you uncomfortable. Because whatever its effect on your individual person, coffee has a half-life of about 4 to 5 hours, so you're going to be stuck with that feeling for a good long time. Or maybe like me, you just need to take a break and get yourself sorted once in a while and then go carry right on again. Just listen to yourself and make sure you're taking care of yourself the best you can. This is, of course, my recommendation for every area of your life and not just your coffee intake. There's actually oodles of good brain stuff that coffee can do for you with a lot of different, very specific things. Like caffeine has been shown to benefit people with ADHD, and that works in a similar way to the prescription ADHD meds like Adderall. It seems like anything that stimulates the brain seems to have a positive effect on ADHD symptoms, which might sound counterintuitive, but caffeine actually provides a calming effect to those with ADHD and allows them to focus better. Another thing we see in the research is that coffee is also good for maintaining or losing weight. Again, just as long as you're not drinking it with all kinds of calorie-intensive add-ins. 1 8-ounce mug of black coffee has just 2 to 5 calories in it. Coffee creates a sense of fullness, so you don't want to eat a ton. It also increases your overall metabolism so that you're burning more calories than you otherwise would be. Now, you shouldn't start drinking coffee to stifle weight gain, but if you're already doing it, then you should keep in mind that it does have some effects in the area of metabolism and weight. So who else shouldn't drink coffee? If you have anxiety, that's a tricky one because some research says it could be good, but then again, caffeine is a stimulant and it can mimic the symptoms of increased anxiety and maybe even trigger a panic attack. So this is definitely a case by case, and it just depends on where you are in your journey along that path. Drinking coffee during pregnancy is a bit of a hot topic. Anyone who's pregnant or might become pregnant should limit their caffeine intake to 200 milligrams a day, which probably actually isn't too hard because that's about 12 ounces of coffee. So if you're drinking 1 8-ounce mug of coffee in the morning, then you're probably going to be fine. And actually, you might be way more than fine because one study from UPenn showed that women who consumed 100 milligrams a day of caffeine in the second trimester had a lower risk of gestational diabetes. The issue with caffeine during pregnancy is that some studies have shown a decrease in birth weight and a possible increase in miscarriage risk when you cross that 200 milligram mark. Then again, the research here is a bit contradictory, and other studies that examine the exact same thing did not find those results. It is worth noting, though, that caffeine is one substance that can cross the placenta and get to the baby, and babies don't yet have the enzymes that allow them to process caffeine effectively, so it wouldn't really be a surprise if that had some unwanted consequences for some people. People with underlying cardiac conditions should absolutely consult their doctor to figure out if they should be drinking coffee or not. Caffeine can put a strain on an already strained heart and vascular system, which might just increase the damage that was already done. Even though it's good for your heart and it's heart healthy overall, it could do harm to people who are already living with certain conditions. And in the general population, coffee consumption can increase acid reflux and heartburn. It's also possible that it can cause sleep disturbances and disrupt sleep cycles and maybe even lead to insomnia. So if you're experiencing those things, try to regulate your intake a little better. Time it better so you aren't drinking coffee close to bedtime. And try to stop drinking it past 5 or 6 p.m. in the evening. And if you come down with heartburn, well, welcome to the club. You get yourself a steady stream of Prilosec. Good luck and Godspeed there, pilgrim. Caffeine can also interfere with the function of some medications also. There are a handful of antidepressants that might not work as well depending on how much coffee you're drinking. Some over-the-counter cold medicines like pseudoephedrine can do weird things because Sudafed is also a stimulant. Certain asthma inhalers can also make you a little jittery, so that increases with caffeine intake. Medications for Alzheimer's might have a hard time getting to where they need to go if someone's a big coffee drinker. Blood pressure medicine can also be less potent if you're drinking a lot of coffee. And this is not an exhaustive list, and there are a lot of reasons to talk to your doctor about coffee if you're experiencing symptoms from the caffeine itself or if you have another condition that coffee might impact. The good news about any medication you might be on, though, is that there's a very easy fix for this, which is to just change up the timing so that you aren't drinking coffee too close to when you take the meds. And that one's a pretty simple solution, but other potential issues might not be, so it is really worth finding out. In fact, it's a good idea to find out more about coffee regardless, because it's everywhere. 2 billion cups of coffee are consumed each and every day around the world. In America, 66% of us drink coffee, and we tend to drink a lot, on average 3 cups a day. It feels like we should really be digging into this a whole lot more, especially since it's something we're all putting inside us pretty much all of the time. And because it feels like everyone is still so in the dark about the actual health effects of coffee. Now, I wrote about the misconceptions surrounding this over 10 years ago now, back when I was writing for the urgent care chain CityMD, and I was covering fun medical science topics for a general audience. And I still come across people all the time who tell me they don't drink coffee because they think it's bad for them. And that's because the story of coffee and its effects on human health in the public narrative are very different than what the actual science tells us. Maybe this is really a story about conventional wisdom, because the conventional wisdom about coffee is that it's bad for you. It causes all kinds of health problems and you shouldn't drink it. The fact is, there are over 100 compounds in coffee that have been found to be beneficial to human health. It can protect your heart, decrease your risk of all kinds of diseases like depression, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. Of course, I didn't even talk about the beneficial effects on gastrointestinal health and the way that coffee keeps a lot of people's colons as regular as a Tokyo subway station. So now you know all the fun science stuff about this delectable backyard bean juice. You've stuck around to the end to learn about the available research on coffee and human health. And now you can use that knowledge to annoy the people in your life who still somehow resist the pull of that morning motor oil that most of us need to lube up our people cars. And now you don't have to feel bad about that yourself. Spread the word. Spread the gospel of coffee. Brew regularly and brew often. Just make sure you're using protection for the biggest benefit. And also, since coffee is doing some good in your body, make sure that you're doing some good in your own little sphere of influence in the world. I'll see you next time.